Thank you very much, Dr. Mukhwana, and the floor is yours. Let me know when you want me to move the slide.
Thank you, and let's go to the next slide, Eduarda. Okay, thank you. I'll quickly summarize the functions of the Kenya National Qualifications Authority, and they are very much in line with what France and my sister from Seychelles had indicated, that we do register qualification awarding institutions. We also register their qualifications, and we are creating a database of the learners that are graduating out of these systems. We also do carry out recognition and equation of both national and foreign qualifications, as well as verifying the authenticity of those qualifications. We do carry out recognition of prior learning, and this is the topic that we'll be discussing today. We are also involved in aspects of facilitating credit accumulation and transfer. I've talked about verification of qualifications and the issues of quality assurance. Next. RPL is not a new idea because, as you know, UNESCO and other people have been promoting the idea of lifelong learning that can empower individuals to become self-determined and educated. As we all know, not all learning takes place within the classroom. So RPL recognizes that learning is a lifelong affair. And what has been challenging is, how do you capture this learning, and how do you document it? How do you assess it? How do you certify it? And so RPL is used internationally as a tool for lifelong learning. It promotes access to higher education and also creates credit that you can use at higher levels. And hopefully it can lead to improved productivity, of employability, mobility of workers, and socio-economic inclusivity, because we have people that have skills that are very useful to our economy, but then they are not been recognized and dignified, and so they kind of do backdoor work. Next. Within the Kenyan environment, and we are operating under quite a bit of a policy environment, that within the Kenya environment, we have a sessional paper, policy paper for 2019 that singles out the challenge that our education system has issues with quality, relevance, and inclusivity. And part of what we are trying to do through RPL is to address some of these issues. We also have a paradox of shortage of relevantly skilled workforce in Kenya, which is interesting because we have a lot of people looking for jobs, but then you find that we have a shortage of manpower because we have islands of undocumented, untapped, and recognized skilled workers that exist within our environment, living side by side by people looking for jobs that have not been brought into the workforce. So implementing RPL is trying to help us to deal with this issue of how do you have jobs without people and people without jobs in the same environment, because this is exactly what we are having. Next. So what is RPL? According to, for example, Nafuho, Amtabi, and Otunga, we have indicated that human beings learn throughout life, from cradle to grave. So we all learn, and we all know that when we were born, we could not speak, and we've done a few other things that we can now be able to do. So RPL is the process of acknowledging, assessing, and certifying learning that occurred outside a formal learning environment. So as we know, across Africa, we have a large number of informal workers, what we call it here in Kenya, Juakali sector. So we have a lot of people that are doing a lot of important work, but then it's all informal learning that is not created within the classroom, and yet is useful for our lives. Next. We have different names, so you will not always meet the word RPL. Within the UK, for example, they call it accreditation of prior experiential learning. In France, you will get validation of learning from experience. Other people call it prior learning assessment and recognition, especially in Canada and the Caribbean countries. In Africa, we see more use of recognition of prior learning and also something validation of learning experiences especially in the French parts of Africa. Next. As I said, RPL is not new. It dates back to the 1970s, when RPL was used to broaden access to higher education, especially for war veterans. As we all know, most of them went for war, and they were not able to sit into a classroom, but in the process of war, they learned a lot of skills in wiring, in electrical work, and many other things. So part of it was to help integrate these people back into the economy and into the workplace. In 1972, UNESCO formally recognized the concept of lifelong learning. And also we have, so members of states of the UNESCO have been required for a long time to integrate RPL into national qualification frameworks. Of course, this has not happened a lot, but the best nearest example to us of use of RPL within our African text is South Africa, where we had a large number of people working in the mines, in the informal sector, and mostly boycotting the formal education system because of apartheid. And so after independence, the country found itself in an interesting scenario where they had a lot of skills that were outside the formal system. And so RPL was naturally used to try and integrate these people into the formal system. Next. Within the Kenyan environment, we have the Kenya National Qualification Framework Act number 22 of 2014 that specifically mandates us to look at RPL, and section 4C says mandates KNQA to develop a system of competence lifelong learning and attainment of national qualifications. 8.1K provides for recognition of attainment of competences, including skills, knowledge, attitudes, and values, regardless of where and how they were acquired. Next. More globally, we see the SDG goal number 4 that aims at ensuring inclusive and equitable quality education and the promotion of lifelong learning opportunities for all by 2030. The Africa AU Agenda 2063, the Africa We Want, a strategy framework aiming at achieving a prosperous and peaceful Africa, where aspiration 1 includes well-educated citizens and skills revolution underpinned by science, technology, and innovation for a knowledgeable society. Then we have the CISA 2016 strategic objective acquisition of requisite knowledge and skills. I've already talked about the sessional paper in Kenya. The ILO, International Labour Organization, has also long promoted the use of RPL in Africa and other places. Next. So as we've said, in very simple terms, RPL is a process that is used to identify, to assess, and certify knowledge, skills, and competences of a person, regardless of how, when, and where the learning has occurred. And also assessment is done against a prescribed standard. Learning outcomes. So I will show you how we've linked this, that this assessment is done against a prescribed. So basically we are assessing you to say, do the knowledge and skills that you have meet a standard that has been set. So basically that's how it works. Next. So recognizing what? I think it can get very confusing. We're saying what we recognize are learning outcomes. We recognize qualifications. There could be part qualifications. There could be credits. There could be exemptions. So, and for what? And for whom? Sometimes we are recognizing RPL so that we promote your entry into the formal institutions, employability. We've talked about mobility, self-esteem, because you have skills that are contributing to an economy, and the economy is ignoring you as if you don't exist, which is a bit unfair. And recognition by who? So we have assessors, we have employers, we have professional bodies that are able to recognize these skills in line with the standards that they have set. And recognition is about people, it's about employers, it's about professional bodies, as we will be talking. Next. There are many benefits of RPL. I'm sure by now you've already seen some of them, that they can be used for credit transfer, they can be used for harmonization, they can be used to recognize experiential learning, for upgrading your skills, even sometimes to meet regulatory requirements. Next. Who qualifies? Within the Kenyan education system, the KNQA has developed a policy and guidelines for RPL, and any institutions are accredited by the KNQA as a qualification awarding institution. Remember, in Kenya, we have 2 levels of accreditation. You can be accredited as a training institution, but you need a separate accreditation for you to assess and award qualifications. So for us here, we are talking about a qualification awarding institutions. These are the examination bodies, they could be universities, but you must have an act of parliament that allows you to operate as a qualification awarding institution. Universities also qualify to examine and award recognition of prior learning certificates. National polytechnics also have legal notices to do that, and so on. So training providers that are registered by various regulators can also do that through their qualification awarding institutions. Next. The RPL policy in Kenya aims to promote an umbrella framework for all RPL related activities, because this is a new idea. We didn't want everyone to come up with their own system of RPL. So we provided a national framework, policy environment, and guidelines that will guide everybody who would like to do RPL. And it also aims at integrating RPL into existing legal and policy frameworks in the education sector. And it also aligns RPL activities to the Kenya National Qualification Framework, so that every time you are being assessed at KNQF level 1, level 2, level 3, so that your skills and your learning outcomes are matched within the qualification framework. The policy also spells the objectives and expected outcomes of RPL and defines the various institutional frameworks and what role these institutions can play. So we have identified within the policy environment all the stakeholders that operate within the RPL ecosystem and their roles that they will play, and outlines the process of carrying out RPL in Kenya. Next. I continue. It again promotes access, as I've said, employability, mobility, progression, and fair chances to the disadvantaged, discouraged, and sometimes traditionally marginalized groups. The policy also supports people to enable the national coordination of RPL, focusing on integrating RPL in existing education and training, and support expanded engagement in RPL by government agencies, even employers, for employers to be able, because remember, this is a fairly new way of doing things. So part of what we are promoting is to make sure that RPL is recognized within government circles, by employers, and even by employees themselves, because sometimes you run into...
Sorry,
sorry. Okay. So part of the work that we are doing is a lot of publicity and capacity and training to ensure that employers accept and respect RPL certificates, that employees appreciate the need to go for RPL certificates as part of growing their professions and careers. And RPL also supports our credit accumulation and transfer system, that sometimes you may not get a full qualification, but you may get a part qualification. You may get some credits that may be useful for you at the next level of your learning. And also we are using RPL to support internationalization of Kenyan qualifications. Next. In terms of internationalization, if I just talk about the last issue there, that we have a lot of Kenyans that are working outside the country. In the Middle East, we have a lot of Kenyans in Uganda, in South Africa, Namibia, where my brother is, Tanzania. And part of it is to say, how do we then integrate this? And some of these people move without certificates and papers. So part of it is, and yet they are very highly skilled. So we are also looking at that. In terms of the status of RPL in Kenya, already as we talk, we are using, KNQA has accredited 2 institutions, and I'll be coming to that. The National Industrial Training Authority, NITA, has been already been accredited, but before that, they have been doing something that was very similar to RPL. They have been doing something called government trade test, which basically meant that they have been looking at assessing people and giving a certificate for which qualifications that people had not studied. So we are basically, but we didn't have a national policy, so they didn't call it RPL, they call it government trade test. So we are now converting that into RPL, and we've given it more form and more procedure and more clarity so that it can be helped. So as I've indicated, we have an RPL policy, we have developed an RPL implementation guideline, and we have also developed tools for assessing, used to assess people within the ecosystem. So we have set out an accreditation system for qualification awarding institutions that want to carry out. So remember, KNQA does not carry out RPL, but we actually coordinate the mechanism and the framework. So we accredit examination bodies that are established by law to carry out the issue of RPL. We also guide the process of quality assurance, which is being done by regulators within the different sectors, the university sector, TVET sector. We have, working together, we have developed tools and certification guidelines that are now being used. So our role really is coordination and harmonization. Next. So this is, for example, guidelines for implementation. So this is already published and is available on our website. So we have the first edition on the guidelines on how to carry out RPL in Kenya. Next. I've already, many factors, of course, why RPL stands a good chance of succeeding is that we have a large number of informal workers. We have people looking for better jobs. We have people who are doing jobs, but they think that they are not properly recognized. So the dignity of our aspect comes in lifelong learning promotion. And we hope that RPL can promote better migration across Africa and mobility as we all embrace this system. Next. Who requires RPL in our framework? Almost everyone. So we have people in the informal sector that I've already talked about, the Juakali sector. We have people in the formal sector that have one level of qualification, but they have acquired other skills that nobody has looked at. We have a lot of retirees, especially from the military. Currently, we have a policy within Kenya where people retiring from the military and the police can be used to train in the TVET sector, because these people have a lot of skills in motor vehicle mechanic, in plumbing, in masonry, in carpentry. So you retire as a policeman or a military officer, and then you can be used to train in a vocational training center in the village where you come from, as a way of, and you may also upgrade some of those skills. We have a lot of asylum seekers. We have 2 large refugee camps in Kenya, in Kakuma and Dadaab, for people from Somalia and Southern Sudan. And these people have a lot of skills. Many of them ran away from their homes without coming with their papers. So we are now able to assess them and integrate them and make them more useful to the Kenyan society. Then we have people who have never been to school, but they have skills, youth out of school, some of them drop out very early and so on. Next. This is the RPL ecosystem. It's quite complex, as I've indicated. So KNQA is at the center of it, but we have aspects of basic education. This is primary and secondary education. A regulator there called Education Standards and Quality Assurance Council, ACQF. So we work with that whatever quality assurance mechanisms we have developed are implemented. Then we have the TVET sector that is quite critical. Then the university sector, and then we have professional bodies. And then we have work-based learning. Next. Again, I think this just explains again, we have the TVET sector, professional bodies, basic education, university education, and then we have international partners. I want to indicate from the word go that our work in RPL has been supported quite heavily by the International Labour Organization, Young Africa Works, which is a MasterCard foundation, GIZ. So really, we have quite a big supportive environment for this process. Next. And here, as you can see, the government is playing a big role, and as we have indicated, as education and training providers, we have employers and employees that need to come in. We have trade unions that have to recognize the skills that these people are getting. We have NGOs, the industrial sector, where people are doing work-based learning. So all this is important for our work. Next. This is the institutional arrangement. So you have Government of Kenya, Ministry of Education, where we are located. We have the KNQA here, and we have qualification awarding institutions, some of whom we have already accredited. We have already accredited CDAC. which is a Curriculum Development and Assessments and Certification Council. Then which basically does assessment of qualifications within the TVET sector. Then we have NITA, the National Industrial Training Authority, that is doing more assessment on industrial skills and work-based learning, and for workers that are within the industrial sector. Then we have CASNEP, this is for accountants. Then we have the Kenya National Examination Council. And then we work very closely with the regulators, as I've said, each of our sectors, the Commission for University Education, the TVET Authority, all these and professional bodies to make sure that we get an RPL system and certification system that is acceptable to all the people within the ecosystem that we are operating in. Next. And so you can see that part of what we are doing is we are not developing any curriculum for RPL, but we come up with occupational standards and learning outcomes, and then people are assessed in terms of how they are able to meet the expectations that are set out in the learning outcomes. Next. So different institutions are using different methods, of course, and we'll be describing what we are doing. But for you to assess RPL, there are a number of things, portfolios that you look at. Some people look at employer references, so the employer is able to say, yes, he has been working with me as a plumber for 10 years, and I know he can do this. Sometimes some people use written examinations where the person can be able to write. There's oral assessment for people that may not be able to write. There were interviews, essays, portfolios, some project work, recommendation letters, and especially the portfolio, which is more like a detailed CV, is very, very important. It's the most commonly used process, and I'll be describing a bit more about this. Next. So if you look at, there are many things, as I've already indicated, that one can look at when you are looking at RPL. You could look at an academic report if somebody is in academic environment. There are training certificates that people may have gotten, short courses, long courses, medium courses, diplomas, contracts, job descriptions for jobs that you have done, CVs for yourself, and an analysis of what has been done from a professional experience. So study portfolios, internship reports, and things like those. So I'll come to that. Next. Just we can go continue so that we get the whole thing working. Just continue, Edward, until we get the arrows. Yes, there we go. So basically what we're doing is you acquire knowledge, you acquire skills. Somebody assesses them, they relate them to a qualification within the qualification framework. And hopefully then this creates more opportunities for you in the formal system. And then all this is a promotion for better jobs, self-employment. And in the end, what you're looking for is more decent jobs and hopefully poverty reduction for people that are involved. Next. Within the Kenyan environment, we have several layers of management. We have the National Advisory Committee of the RPL, that is in existence. So this is our roadmap. We established a National Advisory Committee and also a National Steering. So the National Advisory Committee is the policy making organ of the RPL. And then we have the National Steering Committee that is kind of involved with the day-to-day implementation of RPL. We've done induction of both the National Advisory Committee and the National Steering Committee. We have developed RPL tools and guidelines, which we have validated them with stakeholders. And then we have come up with accreditation systems for RPL actors, and that has been ongoing. We are doing a lot of training because this is a new area. So some people are used to more formal assessment. So we are doing a lot of assessment, capacity building for various people, policymakers, technical people, assessors, verifiers, and even the training institutions where students go to enroll for this assessment. And we have also developed an RPL communication strategy because this is a new way of doing things. Some people think that RPL is a way of giving a certificate through the back door. So we are really trying to come up with communication tools that guide this process. And the process has been launched within Kenya. And we are looking at holding an RPL conference early next year to share some of the experiences that we have. Next. The National Advisory Committee, yes, we have principal secretaries, some people call them permanent secretaries in various ministries of vocational training, skills development, labor, public service, basic learning. I'm also involved there, the DG of KNQA, TVETA, CDAC, International Labour Organization, Federation of Kenya Employers, Kenya Private Sector Alliance, Association of Professional Societies. So you can see and these are the people that make policy, and we are currently, even already before we start, we are already looking at our policy, and we are already trying to adjust some of the areas, because when we went to the ground to do the RPL, we found that some things were not working the way we had expected. So we are again trying to review the policy environment. Next. The steering committee, again, KNQA is involved. We have people from the Ministry of Education. We have Kenyan National Federation of Juakali Association. We have the Association of Technical Training Institutes. We have NITA, that I've already mentioned, CDAC, ILO again, and we have Federation of Kenya Employers. We have Kenya Engineering Technologies and Registration Board. We have Refugee Affairs Secretariat, because part of the RPA we are looking at is also recognizing skills within the refugees that are in Kenya. And then we have international partners, Hamburg College, and Norquest from the Canada, and the Council of Governors, because we have a devolved system of government, and we are trying to include the devolved units of government into this process. Next. And a lot of capacity building, as I've said, there's a lot of sensitization, training for people to understand what RPL is and what is not. So we have already sensitized the National Advisory Committee, the National Steering Committee, identified and inducted RPL practitioners, large numbers, and that is still ongoing. And there's a lot of applications coming up and publicity. We have identified RPL qualification awarding institutions, assessment centers where they can go, where there are tools that they can be used, because remember, these are mostly practical assessments. So when the candidates go for assessment, they need to find the right tools that they can be used, especially modern tools for assessment, and of course, a lot of screening of applicants. And we are also developing an online system, an RPL information management system, where the whole process is going to be made online from application to certification. Next. So some of the tools, the quick tools. So after the guideline, we said we have a policy, we have a guideline. Now we had to develop RPL tools that are being used. And so we have a practitioner's guide, we have a candidate's guide, we have a qualification awarding institution guide, assessment center guide, regulatory bodies guide. We have registration and accreditation tools guide. We have a skill gap identification form and an appeals form. Remember, if you are assessed and somebody gives you a verdict that you're not happy with, you can also appeal so that somebody else can assess you again, and you have an opportunity to be assessed at least twice again before we give up on you. Next. This is just an example of how we are doing it. On the right-hand side is the KNQF level. So for example, KNQF level 2, we have said that for you to be assessed at that level, we need samples of your work. If you are a plumber, if you are, for example, a carpenter, we need to see your stools, your sofa sets, the tables that you have made, so samples of your work, photographs of the same, videos, audio files, the materials or tools which the candidate works with. So what are the tools that you are using to do this? And any referees, people that have bought from you, people that have worked with you. And if you look at the extreme right, we will say that, so what is compulsory for us at that level is that we must see samples of your work. And so we accept any three. At level 3, we have again enumerated what you need to have, and we have said that what is compulsory for level 3 is that you must see samples of your work, and they accept any 3 of what we have named there. So you can see that for each level, and we go all the way up to level 10, what is it that you must provide and what is compulsory. If we don't see that, then you are not eligible. So that's the kind of work. Next. Of course, we already see some gaps. So part of the issue, of course, that is that we have a very highly fragmented system, the way France was describing for Namibia, and we are hoping that this can bring us together. Then there's a lot of RPL awareness, that is low awareness of RPL, and so we're really trying to create a lot of that among many people. Acceptance of RPL certificate, we see a bit of resistance to that, but the way we have gone around that is that the RPL certificate is actually not different from the certificate you get from formal learning. So one of the regulations that we have set out is that an RPL certificate should look like any other certificate within the market. Then, of course, we are looking at sustainable funding of this process. Currently, the candidates are paying for it. As many of them can't afford. So the question you have is, if I have the skills, but I don't have the money, how do I go about that? So we are also working on a system of getting some scholarships to support some of the needy candidates to be able to undertake this process. And of course, capacity, we are working on that. Next. Yes, and currently we are doing 1 year of piloting. So we are piloting 3 areas. So we are not doing RPL in everything. We decided to do 3 areas so that we can learn. This is motor vehicle mechanics, level 2, 3, and 4. And we're also doing welding, level 2, 3, and 4 of the KNQF, and textile, level 2, 3, and 4. So we are piloting for all the accreditation that we have given. We are only doing these 3 areas, and we will be doing this for 1 year. And as we have indicated, within 2022, the year 2022, we'll have a national conference on what we will have learned so that we can share experiences before we can expand this to higher levels and also to more trade areas. Next. This is practical. This is some of the materials that we are using. These are actually pictures from assessments that we have already carried out. As you'll see, a lot of it is, some of it in English. We also have a lot of it in Kiswahili. And remember, assessment of RPL is done in any language. So if you don't know English, you don't have to worry. We can examine you in the Kiswahili or in your mother tongue, whichever language you are more comfortable to express yourself. So these are assessments that we have already done over the last 2 months. These are some of the posters that we have also created out of that process. Next. Same as you see here. So we have a lot of publicity materials that we are using to create awareness about this process, both in Kiswahili, local languages, and so on. Next. Yes, I would like to thank you. And if you want more information, you can visit us at knqa.go.ke, and I've also provided our email. So we are willing to learn. We know that this is a new way of work in Africa. We are more than willing to work to share with you as you develop your systems in different countries as we go ahead. So I would like now to invite Eduarda to show us a brief video. One of the things that I would like to say before the video comes is that for you to succeed in this process, you need a lot of support, political support from the highest possible office in the land. I want to say that within Kenya, we have actually received support from our head of state who has endorsed this process. So really, we have a lot of good support, and it has also raised our profile, and it has also put us on our toes in terms of making sure that we develop a system